This is CHSR 97.9 FM here in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. This is Python's Paradise, your film and music show, and this is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena. And folks, I love the horror film genre, especially the old school horror films, the ones that I grew up with, And I can't forget, I got into film criticism because I was inspired when I attended a midnight screening of Psycho. So I guess Alfred Hitchcock was my inspiration for getting into this. But man, I've interviewed a lot of the people from horror films, and especially the Friday the 13th franchise. And I gotta say, the fellow I have on the phone with me right now, I believe, is a Friday the 13th fan as well. We're going to be promoting his film, The Bone Garden. I have the director on the phone with me right now, Mike Gutridge. How do you do, Mike?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm honored. Now, you're from Baltimore, huh?
Yes, sir.
So do you know John Waters?
I have seen John Waters, met John Waters, but I'm not, I don't know him personally, no.
You kind of keeping your distance because it's a little strange, huh?
Yeah. However, it's a funny story. We asked him to do a cameo in The Bone Garden. He, of course, said no, but his assistant is in The Bone Garden. So the very first scene is John Waters' assistant, sweet lady, and we had this running joke. Every movie I make, I'm going to have someone big's assistant. We'll work up to get Steven Spielberg's assistant or something 10 years from now or something like that. But no, so John's assistant's in the film. It's a little funny story.
Yeah, I wanted to get somebody on here last year to celebrate the 35th anniversary of Polyester, because so many of his main core is gone now. Like Divine is gone, Edith Massey is gone, and I can't seem to get Mink Stoll's attention. I've messaged her so many times, but
right.
Yeah. And John Waters, I don't know can't find any contact information. I heard he's like a recluse in Baltimore, Maryland. There.
Yeah. He's a local hero though, and it's funny too because Serial Mom, I think, just came out on Blu-ray. Like Shout Factory put out a real nice edition of Serial Mom, which I've always loved that movie. That could be my favorite Waters film, that or maybe Cry Baby with Johnny Depp.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's funny because I just interviewed a woman named Shelley Work on here back about 2-3 weeks ago. And I interviewed her in affiliation of a film called Ted and Venus, which she was in with Bud Cort. And, of course, it got to the point where she was telling me that she knew Divine personally. And she's telling me of this story. She was at this dinner party where she sat between Divine and John Waters. And she said this was like the strangest dinner party she's ever been to. So that was pretty funny. Anyway, I have had a number of the Friday the 13th alumni on here, and I'm going to tell you a little story behind that, because my first interview was in April of 2015 with Tommy Wiseau from The Room, speaking of horror films.
Sure.
And I remember after interviewing Tommy, I was like, who else could I interview? And my mind just went back to my childhood. And I really wanted to talk to, at the time, now I talk to anybody, but at the time I wanted to talk to women I had the hots for it when I was young. And, of course, immediately I came to Friday the 13th, and I sent a message to Adrienne King.
Okay.
And I had a crush on her when I was younger, and I still think she's stunning today. And I remember sending her a message on Facebook, and I wasn't even sure if anything. I thought, well, I did interview Tommy Wiseau, and then I couldn't believe it was a long weekend in May, and when I got to my computer after the long weekend, there was a message from her saying she'd do the interview, and she was my second interview, and I couldn't believe it.
That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah, I remember going after her and Lisa Langlois from class of 1984, and
Sure.
I ended up getting both of them. In fact, I'm still connected with Lisa because her manager sends me a lot of clientele for my show, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
But for Friday the 13th, I've had a number of people. I've had Adrienne King on here from the original, and the only person from part 2 I had was Adrienne King. Part 2 is despite having 2 of the cast members on my friends list, nobody from that film seems to be coming on my show for whatever reason. Part 3 has also kind of eluded me.
Okay.
The final chapter, though, I hit the gold mine. I got my favorite Jason of all time. I got Ted White on. He was my oldest interview, and boy, what a great guy.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's a great man. Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed interviewing him. He's the only Jason so far that I've had on here. But boy, I'll tell you, the stories he told and the people he doubled for. I got that interview up on my YouTube channel, and I recommend checking out. He was just a great guy to talk to.
Oh, yeah. I spoke to him once, and I remember I'm a huge Kurt Russell fan, and he knew Kurt's father, Bing Russell.
Yep.
And he doubled for Bing, and we spent the whole time talking about Bing. Every time I see Dick Warlock, too, I always talk, because Dick doubled Kurt for 25 years, so we always talk about Kurt Russell for 20 minutes whenever I see Dick Warlock.
Yeah, I've had Dick Warlock on, too. He's the only one from the Halloween franchise I currently had on here. I'm hoping eventually get PJ Souls on, because I love PJ.
Oh, yeah, she's sweet, absolutely.
Love PJ. But, yeah, Ted White was such a trusting guy, because he actually gave me the contact information for Kane Hodder and Judy Aronson, neither of which I've heard back from yet, but I love the trust that he put in me. And yeah. But, I mean, he worked with, like, Clark Gable, and he worked with John Wayne, and he knew Marilyn Monroe before she was Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? Yeah, the history that goes along with Ted White is astounding, really.
Oh, yeah. Now, from a new beginning, I had a trio of gorgeous women on my show. Melanie Kahneman I had on. She was my 10th interview. Every Friday, it's my habit now, I go on her Facebook page and tell her that not just have a nice weekend, but I always tell her, I said, happy Friday to the gorgeous Melanie Kahneman, because I remember the first time I saw A New Beginning. It was like, I thought she was absolutely gorgeous. I said to her, I said, if they got women that look as beautiful as you working at halfway houses, sign me up.
Yeah. That's great.
And I love Melanie. She's a sweetheart. I've had Tiffany Helm on here.
Oh, great. That's great.
I like her. I've had Debbie Suvorhees on twice. I had her on last October. And then she's just recently at Texas Frightmare, and I sent her an interview, which I had just recently put on YouTube, and she said thanks, and she mentions you go be at Texas Frightmare promoting her new movie, Catching Up. Mm-hmm. And I said, come on my show and promote it.
Yeah.
So I had her on a second time.
That's great. That's great.
Jason Lives, I had 4 people on. I had the only director I've had on, Tom McLaughlin.
Oh, great. He's awesome. That's great.
Speaking of awesome, I had Nancy McLaughlin on.
Okay. I
love Nancy.
Yeah, she's something.
Well, I was doing a charity challenge called the Doubtfire Face Challenge for to help raise awareness for suicide and depression.
Okay.
And it was brought up when Robin Williams had passed away, and it was a kind of a follow-up to the ALS challenge, Ice Bucket Challenge.
Mm-hmm, sure.
And it involved taking a pie in the face and nominating 3 people.
Oh.
And I did this, and I nominated people I interviewed with. Lisa Langlois responded, and she did it. Uh-huh. And Nancy McLaughlin did it. And she wanted to get the rest of the cast from Jason Lives in on this, but she couldn't seem to get anybody rounded up. But what she did was she brought a bunch of props from the movie up to be part of the video.
Oh, great.
And she didn't take a pie in the face. She took a cake in the face.
Okay.
But she was so awesome. And
yeah, she is.
And I've been trying to put the Doubtfire Challenge out there. So if you want to do this, feel free. It's for a good cause. But yeah. I know a lot of the Friday alumni is on the nomination list.
Okay.
Yep. But she did this. I've had Tom Matthews on here.
Oh, great. Part 6 could be my favorite sequel, too, in the Friday.
Oh, it's
I've
great.
always loved Part 6.
Yeah, I had him on, and I had Carrie Noonan on, who played Paula.
Oh, yeah. She's in Vermont now, right?
Yeah, she is.
Yeah.
And she knew where I was.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's familiar with my area, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, for part 7, I ended off 2016 with an interview with Lar Park Lincoln.
Okay.
Love her.
Yeah.
And she also, through me and through Scotty McCoy and through Nancy McLaughlin, is going to do the Doubtfire Challenge. It's just a matter of when.
Okay, very good.
Yep, I look forward to seeing her do that. But she was awesome. From Jason Takes Manhattan, not my favorite of the franchise, but I knew if I interviewed anybody from it, it had to be Peter Mark Richmond. And I got him. He was so awesome. He's got a little, like he has a little trouble hearing a little bit, and his memory's not what it used to be. But he really appreciates talking to the fans, and he really remembers working on Friendly Persuasion, working with Gary Cooper. So
oh wow,
yeah, so he was great. And part 9 and 10, I've had no luck with anybody yet, and Freddy versus Jason, I've had Zach Ward on, but we more or less talked about Postal and A Christmas Story.
Oh, okay.
So
neat.
That brings me to Bone Garden. I'm going to tell you the story of how I come to find out about Bone Garden. It's kind of funny. I always said if I interviewed anybody from Friday the 13th, Part 3, it had to be the absolutely gorgeous, beautiful, stunning Tracy Savage.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I remember first time seeing part 3, and I was like, I was just enamored. I thought she was just gorgeous. And anyway, I went online to see if I could track down info to make a contact with her. And I know there's info there. It's just a matter of getting her attention. So I did this, didn't hear back, so I kind of went about my business. And then I think it was like the second time I reached out. I saw some, I don't know whether it was a post online or something about the Bone Garden. And I was like, what is this? So I clicked onto it. And I'll be honest with you, I thought it was a joke. Because I was like, she's playing Alice Hardy, who is, of course, the name of the Adrienne King character in the original Friday. And it had Paul Kratka and Ron Milkey in it, both from Friday films. And I was like, is this for real? Is this actually a real film? Because I thought maybe that might have been a parody or something. And so I clicked on, I'm seeing a link to it, and then, it was great to see Tracy, on camera again. She still looks good.
Oh, she's gorgeous, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, gee, this is an actual movie. So,
well, we use that term lightly, but yeah, it's a movie.
Well, you know what? I tried to find it online because sometimes in YouTube you find full movies. Couldn't. So I was like, well, I'll see what I can see on this movie. So eventually I got to the point where, you know what? I'm going to have Mike Gutridge on here and talk about this movie and whet mine and everybody else's curiosity because, yeah. I'm very curious. So how did I come to find out about your film? I was looking for Tracy Savage and found the Bone Garden.
Okay, very good, very good. Well, I'm glad you found it. Yeah, I've been friends with Tracy for 20 years or so. I used to live in L.A. and I was a video editor at KMBC4, and she was a reporter, and we met, and it's funny, because when I heard her, she was feeding in audio. I was editing. I'm like, God, I've heard this voice before. And I just couldn't place it. And somebody said, oh, I think she's in Halloween 5. I'm like, no, she's definitely not in Halloween 5. And then when I saw her, I'm like, oh, my God, it's Debbie from Part 3. So we hit it off, became fast friends. And she was in my first short film, Loretta. And she was in The Bone Garden. Years later, I wrote the script. It's funny, you interviewed Adrienne King. I wrote it for Adrienne King. I was trying to get another film off the ground with Adrienne, and it would have been really expensive. And Adrienne said, Mike, it'd be great if we did some little small film together and showed investors and all that we could do something and then make the bigger film later. And I said, yeah, that is a good idea. So I wrote The Bone Garden in like 10 days.
Okay.
And that's why there's all kinds of in-jokes, Alice Hardy. And if you watch the film, there's Paul Krakta's character's name is Norman, like Psycho, and,
yeah.
It takes place in Carpenter County. There's all kinds of John Carpenter, and even Phantasm, which is my favorite franchise. There's like Bannister, and, from Reggie Bannister and stuff. And And so I wrote it, and Adrienne liked it, but Adrienne, because of her scheduling and stuff, couldn't do it. She just couldn't do it because of her scheduling. And my wife, who was also a producer, we kind of looked at each other and we thought, well, who could we get? And we thought of Amy Steele, who I'd written the screenplay for Amy as well. So I had her number and I had a relationship with Amy. But Amy wanted a little bit more money than we had. We had, our budget was laughable. So Amy couldn't do it for that reason. And then Katie and I looked at each other and we were like, you know what? And we both said at the same time, Tracy Savage. Tracy was in my first film. She's one of my dearest friends. And I called her right up, and she agreed to do it without even reading the script. She said, yep, I'll do it. Put me in. So boom, Alice Hardy became Tracy Savage's role. And then we were off and running. So,
it's funny. I cannot seem to get Amy Steele's attention either. It's amazing. I've had a couple of Friday people turn me down, including one that didn't even realize their film was 35 years old.
Oh, wow.
And they were polite about it, I mean, Stu Charno turned me down, and Larry Zerner turned me down. Wow. And they're both on my friends list, and I don't hold it against them. They were polite, but my track record with the Friday films have been pretty good. I haven't had too bad a track record with it, especially considering the ones I've had come on here. But I got to say, going into your film, like I said, having Tracy Savage come on there, like when I was young, everybody here's the interesting thing about Friday the 13th, and I've shared this story on here before. And I was talking to Debbie Sue about this because there was a video come out that I actually found through Melanie Kahneman called A New Beginning, which was done by Canadian comedian John Lajoie, which was about how he had first seen A New Beginning, and it was his first taste of nudity on film.
Oh, wow.
And it reminded me because he lost his energy, his innocence. Anyway, I got me thinking about how in part 2, my first, I would have been 12 years old. My cousins baited me into watching part 2. And there was 3 kills on the screen until, but it was a scene where Kirsten Baker goes naked across the lake. That was where my mom turned the television off.
Oh, yeah.
And I guess I'm finding that the Friday the 13th films are kind of an introductory to our loss of innocence for a lot of boys.
Yeah, I think so. That's a good way of putting it.
But strange, because despite all the kills and all the gore, one of the reasons I like the films, because when I was young, I had a favorite female in every one of them.
Uh-huh.
Some of them, some of them would survive. And then some of them weren't so lucky. And I always said the one thing about Friday the 13th Part 3 that I would have changed is I would have made Debbie the sole survivor. Nothing against Dana Kimmel.
Yeah, me too.
But,
yeah, I would do that.
But here's what everybody seems to forget. And this has been brought up to me by, I think it was Scotty McCoy, the guy who wrote the Friday the 13th trivia book. And maybe David Grove, who wrote the Ultimate Friday the 13th, On Location in Blairstown, The Making of Friday the 13th. Mm-hmm. It's strange. You see all these books that have, or magazines that have the body counts. They always list the body counts. Part 3, they list all the people from Steve Susskind all the way down to Paul Kratka as dead. Mm-hmm. They never, ever, ever mention the fact that when Debbie is killed, there's actually 2 deaths there.
Because she was pregnant.
Exactly. It's like that poor kid. You see all these people protesting abortions, and yet nobody gives that her fact she's pregnant a second thought. Yep, that's great. But it's strange because I gotta wonder if the person that wrote Part 3 had forgotten that was part of her character.
Yeah, you never know. That's because there definitely was some rewrites. Paul was originally, his character instead of Rick was called Derek, and So yeah, I wonder if that just kind of got lost in a rewrite or something like that. That's a good point.
What do you think Debbie would have been like as the heroine?
I think she would have kicked ass. She does in my film anyway. So.
Oh yeah, I so badly want to see Bone Garden.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, you kind of owe it to Tracy Savage that I reached out to you because I got more and more curious about this film.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you did. Yeah, we have Ron Milkey and Tracy and Paul, and everyone was great to work with. Ron was just a dream, and he had some great stories about the original Friday, and of course Tracy's just always I'm hoping if I keep making films to have her in them in some capacity or another.
I gotta demand it. I demand it.
You got it.
But, I remember having Peter M. Bracke on here, who wrote the Crystal Lake Memories book, and he was telling me the first of the franchise he saw was Part 3 in 3D. He attended a screening. And the first thing I asked, forget about the kills. I said, what was it like seeing Tracy Savage in 3D? You've seen her in 3D. Is she as beautiful in person?
Yeah, she is, inside and out. I always I tell people she's beautiful on the outside where it's nice, but she's also beautiful on the inside where it counts. She's a class act, really professional, really no ego. There's just no ego with her, and she's had a great career in news and radio, and now she's teaching at a college in Southern California. So she's just just a class act through and through. And like I said, one of my dearest friends. I told her once, I said, if I was going to get married tomorrow, Tracy would be my best man. She's definitely someone you want standing next to you and something like that, because she has your back.
Mike, you're supposed to say if you're getting married tomorrow, Tracy would be the wife.
Yeah, well, you know what? I don't think she thinks of me that way, which is a good thing. Cause
I'm just joking with you.
No, I'm not man enough for her anyway. I told her that.
But I will say, I think she's beautiful. I loved her in the film. I always felt bad when she gets killed in the hammock.
Yeah, I know. My wife and I, when we watch that part, we always shoot rubber darts at the screen when Jason kills her. Because we have these little rubber dart guns, and when Richard Brooker lowers the boom on her, we say, no, we don't accept that. She's alive. So, and funny story, she saved the day on the Bone Garden. There's what no one knows, obviously, is we had another alumni scheduled to be in the film, alumni from Part 6, and she backed out at the very last minute. Tracy's in the movie, Tracy has a best friend named Laurie Curtis, which is a total homage to Jamie Lee Curtis and Laurie Strode.
Okay.
And the actress we had lined up to play Laurie backed out on Wednesday, and everybody was coming into town Friday. So on Wednesday, I was without an actress, and it's a big part. Tracy's best friend was a big part in the movie. So I was behind the eight ball again, and the first person I called was Stacey Nelkin, who was in Halloween 3, who I'd had a relationship with, and we mentioned we wanted to do something together. She's also a really sweet woman, and she was ready to go on vacation. Like I said, it was just 2 days' notice. And she's like, Mike, I wish I could. I can't. I'm going out of town with my family. So behind the eight ball, I called Tracy, whose mom's an agent, and Tracy's been in L.A. for years and years. And I said, Tracy, do you know anyone, any actress at all? I don't even care if they're an alumni from a scary movie franchise that could come in and, I'm really behind the eight ball here because so-and-so backed out. And she goes, yeah, absolutely. And she introduced me to Tammy Cates, who, not in any horror films or anything, but Tammy's a great actress. She's a career actress. That's what she does for a living. A lot of people do it on the side while they do something else. And Tammy came in at the 11th hour. I mean, I talked to Tammy, I think, on Thursday, and she got to town on Saturday, and we were shooting Monday. So she came in at the 11th hour, Tammy did, and played Laurie Curtis, Alice Hardy's best friend. And I owe that all to Tracy because we were really behind the eight ball and scrambling there for a second when this actress backed out at the last minute. So thank you, Tracy.
Yeah. Yeah, Stacey Nelkin, it's interesting that you mentioned her because I reached out to her for an interview this year and did not hear back. I understand, she was in Halloween 3. She was also in Yellowbeard.
Yeah.
She was also supposed to, and I got to wonder how this wounds her a little bit. I don't know, but she was originally supposed to be in Blade Runner.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you remember what it says in Blade Runner where 2 replicants fried?
Oh, yeah, you're right. I'd forgotten about that.
She was supposed to be one of those replicants.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
She's a sweet woman. In fact, I just saw her 2 weeks ago at Chiller
Yeah.
in New Jersey. And, reach out to her again because she's very open to that kind of stuff, and she's really flattered and all about that. I've always loved Halloween 3. Thought it was criminally underrated. I think it's a good standalone movie. It just shouldn't have been called Halloween 3.
Yeah.
If you're going in there expecting to see Michael Myers, of course you're going to be disappointed. But I watch it, every year. The Blu-ray that Shout Factory put out is fantastic, and I've always been a champion of Halloween 3, even when I was a kid.
Well, I wanted to ask Stacey Nelkin about Blade Runner. I was lucky. I got Joanna Cassidy on from Blade Runner, so I was lucky, able to celebrate the film's 35th anniversary. But I was always curious about the two replicants of Fried, and I found out that she was supposed to be. And I believe, if I remember correctly, now this has been a while, but I got this big book on all this theories and all this stuff on Blade Runner, and I believe that she. Actually, I don't know whether she auditioned. Don't quote me on this, but I'm again, I don't want to send out any wrong information, but I do believe she was cast. But again, people have to check that out to find out for sure, because I don't want to send out any wrong information.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, Stacey Nelkin was, of course, supposed to be in that, so that might have been pretty interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But The Bone Garden, now, done on, of course, a shoestring budget. And, of course, movies made here are often done that way as well. But you know something? A lot of times when you got low-budget films, they turn out to be the most interesting films to watch. I mean, you look at Halloween and Friday the 13th and those independents. They turned out very, very well for the limited budget they had. Mm-hmm. And if you're really, really lucky, you get somebody like Tracy Savage come in, But you got all these Friday the 13th people come in. Now, you mentioned how you got Tracy Savage. Tell me a little bit about getting Paul Kratka in the movie, because, of course, he played the eye-popping Rick in part 3.
Yeah. I reached out to him. He was a chiropractor for a while, and he had his own private website, so I just Googled his name. And I'd written a screenplay that I'm trying to do next. I'm in pre-production on right now called
Wood Floors. Yep.
Which is a like a drama, an art house drama. It's not a horror film at all. And I reached out to him because I had this role with Dr. McCarran that I thought he'd be perfect for. And this is like in 04, 05. And reached out to him, and we talked on the phone, and we've been shooting back and forth, and just became friends that way, just talking on the phone. I would send him screenplays I'd written. And when the Bone Garden came up really quick, like I said, I wrote it for Adrienne King. It's just something to do in the meantime while we were getting this other project off the ground. I sent it to Paul. I said, I'm going to do this film in the spring. You want to play Norman, the husband? And then, we can do Wood Floors after. And I sent it to him, and he liked it, and he said he would do it. And I said, yeah. And at the time, it was going to be Adrienne King, but then he became even more thrilled when I said, guess who's going to be in it now? Tracy Savage. It'd be the first time you guys are back together, and at the time, 30 years. So he was thrilled, and he came into town. At the time, Paul was living in Boston, so he would just fly down to the Baltimore area and where we were shooting. And we shot for a week or so. Before Tracy came on board, we shot for a week in May with just Paul and a few other like regular, local cast members. And then when Tracy came to town in July with Tammy, we shot the rest of the film. And it was great. So yeah, I've been in touch with Paul since probably 2004. I was thrilled to work with him, and we'll definitely work with him again when we do Wood Floors.
Is he putting Wood Floors down?
Yeah.
I looked that up. I noticed you had that on the go, and I noticed there's no Tracy Savage in it. Shame.
Yeah, shame. Not yet. She'll be in there. Don't you worry. We'll get her going. She's teaching now. She goes, look, if I'm not teaching, I'll do it. So, and it's funny. I just wrote another film that it's so funny. It takes place at a summer camp.
Okay.
And I thought, wouldn't it be neat? It's only 3 characters. It's this real low-budget art house film in a summer camp. And I thought, I definitely want to get 3 Friday alumni.
Yes.
Even though it's a drama, just get these 3 Friday alumni. I've been talking to Peter Barton from Part 4.
Okay.
Tracy, and maybe, I don't know who the third one would be, but get them all back at the camp, you know what I mean? Even though nobody's going to get decapitated or anything. It'd be neat to get 3 Friday actors back at the camp again. That'd be fun.
Peter Barton and, Tracy Savage. Let me see. Let me help you out here.
Okay.
I'm going to mention all the women that I thought were really pretty.
Okay. Amy Steele.
Amy Steele, Adrienne King.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
You know, I always loved was Laurie Bartram. You know, rest in peace.
Yeah,
I always thought in part one she was stunningly beautiful with like very silent film features. Like I don't know, she just had this old school look about her. And it's funny, if you were going to go back in time and pick who you think the big star would be, I mean, no offense because I'm a huge fan, it wouldn't have been Kevin Bacon. I would have picked Laurie Bartram as someone who would have gone on to do big things after that. Because I just thought she was so gorgeous. And she was probably my favorite character. That was definitely one that I was sorry didn't make it to see the light of day again, because I was a fan of hers.
You know, it's funny, because, and nothing against Kevin Bacon, I think he's a talented guy, but in Friday the 13th, he has the most boring part in the movie.
Yeah, like I said, I wouldn't have picked him as someone who would have gone on to be a big star, but that's what happens when you make a film like Footloose.
Yeah, well, he done well for himself, yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
I'm a huge fan.
Like, I thought Crazy Ralph was more interesting than he was.
Yeah, big mistake killing him. I thought that was in part two. I was like, really? And I think they regretted that, too, because they, quote-unquote, brought him back in part three, just as a different character with that guy with the eyeball.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, why did you guys kill Crazy Ralph? See, the thing about Friday is if they were made now, there'd be a lot more continuity in them. And yeah. I thought there was always an opportunity to make Crazy Ralph maybe Jason's father, you know what I mean? Or, you know, and I just think when they killed him, they lost a huge opportunity there because that actor was just so, I mean, no one else in the world looked like him. No one else in the world acted like him. That was like a one-of-a-kind thing, and I thought it was a mistake to let him go the way they did in part two.
Did you hear that Jason's father was originally supposed to be at the end of part 6?
Yeah, I know. Tommy told me that when we lived out west. I was talking to him once at a screening at the Egyptian Theater, and he first told me that. Because I had the book. I had the novelization.
Yep.
And that's in the book. And I thought, wow, that's neat. This guy Simon Hawke kind of took a little turn in the book. Well, it turns out that that's how the original screenplay ended. I didn't even know that at the time. So that would have been a great idea. That's the thing when you attach studios to movies. They get scared and cold feet, and they don't take any chances. And that would have been a hell of a... I'll never understand why Friday never did that, where it was Mommy in part one and Daddy in part two. Like, because, I mean, Jason's clearly dead. Victor Miller told me this to my face. Jason's dead at the end of his movie. Like,
yeah.
The fact that Jason came back at all always surprised me, and I was always shocked that they never just brought Dad in. And Mom in part one, who's Dad? You know, Dad could have come in and taken over, and they never ever explored that. And now it's, you know, way too late. So.
Yeah, but no, you had Ron Milkey in the film. It's interesting because aside from Tracy Savage, I have reached out to Paul Kratka and I've reached out to Ron Milkey. Ron Milkey's actually on my friends list.
Oh,
I find it funny when people are on my friends list and they don't respond.
Yeah, let me tell you right now, I'll vouch for him. He's never on Facebook. So I'll be more than happy to shoot him an email. He's a very sweet, down-to-earth man. He'll definitely do it. When I tell him I did it, he'll definitely do it. And he was great. I met him at a Monster Mania convention.
Okay.
And got his info, and I thought, who could play this cop? And I didn't think he'd want to, because he already played a cop in part one. I sent him the script. I said, let me know what you like. I thought maybe he played the neighbor. There's a real creepy neighbor in the movie.
Okay.
And he said, no, Mike, I like the sheriff, whose name is Ben Meeker, which is a Halloween 4 tribute. There's all kinds of horror fans love it because there's all kinds of in-jokes. There might be too many. But I said, you want to play Meeker? Because you already played a cop. And he said, no, I really like that part. So he came and played the sheriff, and that's the part he picked because I had him pegged for the neighbor, and he nailed it. You know, he nailed it, and he's really good in it. And again, total professional. Took the bus down from New York, and he just showed up on time, knew his lines. You know, Ron's he teaches acting in New York, and he's become a good friend. Very old school, hits his mark, says his line, does it right, does it one time. If we did 3 takes with Ron, it was rare. We did usually one and done with him. Sometimes we do a take 2 for safety. So we were very efficient. And working with people like Tracy, you know, Tracy, she comes from live news, so she knows that you got to get it right the first time because it's live. So we could shoot very efficiently because of people like Ron and Tracy, who were very, very on cue and didn't miss a beat. I was very lucky to have that in front of the camera.
Yeah, I always felt that Officer Dorff in Friday the 13th should have had at least one more scene. Now, technically he does, because at the end of Friday the 13th, I guess he's one of the two cops up on the beach, but...
Yeah. Yeah, I was hoping too. And again, like if Fridays were made today, there'd be more continuity, and it would have been nice to bring him back in part 2 and have Jason, there's that cop that gets killed, chasing Jason through the woods, and that should have been Officer Dorff, you know what I mean? They should have brought him back and done that, because they were in the same general area. Part 1 was New Jersey, part 2 was Connecticut, so... But yeah, that was on a missed opportunity. But yeah, I love, and that little scene, and let me tell you right now, that's my favorite scene probably in the movie, is when Ned's dancing around like that. And he told me how Kevin Bacon was improvising, which was really nice. Like Kevin, you'll see in the movie, Kevin grabs his walkie-talkie when they start calling for Officer Dorff, and that wasn't scripted. Like Kevin just did that spontaneously. And Kevin, Ron said it was really great working with Kevin because of that. And so that was really neat. That's one of my favorite scenes in the movie, when they're all, dancing around like that. And then right after that is when Crazy Ralph comes out of the pantry, really creepy.
Yep. Yeah. No, I really like his sequence in the movie. And, it might have made sense if he was in part 2. But it's interesting because I brought something up to Adrienne King that I don't think she was quite aware of. She might have heard of it, but in the cabin in part 2 where you see the severed head, and you can see Alice Hardy's body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of propped up against the table, and you have to really look, but you can see it. And of course, the cop's body's there, and Kirsten Baker's body is there as well.
Yeah, it's neat.
Yeah, but how long did it take you to shoot The Bone Garden?
We shot for 23 days.
Oh, it was a quick shoot. Any difficulties aside from the person that was unavailable to show up?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Any difficulties, like challenges to shooting, other than that one actress?
No, it was a real dream. We had, the weather worked out, because summer on the East Coast can be hit or miss. There was only one scene that had to be moved inside because it was raining. So the weather worked out, and I was very fortunate to have a great crew. Steve Bauer and Marianne Whittlesberger, they produced the film and also did all the special effects, and they basically got the film made. We used, I went through 3 different producers. We originally were going to shoot in Chicago, and that producer had to back out, because, when you're working for basically free, if a paying gig comes up, you got to take that gig. So I had 2 separate producers that had to back out, and I met Steve and Marianne through a mutual friend, and they came on board. Were very gung-ho. They said we can use our house, and they brought a bunch of, they lived in Hollywood for years, and now they were back on the East Coast. They brought a bunch of people with them, and they had a whole cast, a whole crew of people that could come in and work for them, and they really elevated the film to a higher level of professionalism, and it was just a very tight ship, and and then my mom did a lot of the food, and my wife's mother did some food, so we had catering and stuff like that. Because let me tell you, if you're not paying people, you got to be feeding them. So so we were lucky and had that, and that worked out really well for us.
Do you think Bone Garden will come out on Blu-ray? Because I love to get it on Blu-ray, but if worse comes to worse, I'll get it on DVD.
I'm hoping. We're pushing for that. It's on DVD now, but I'm hoping we can get a nice Blu-ray release soon.
So on the DVD, do you have extras, like a commentary track or anything like that on there?
Absolutely. There's a nice commentary track that we recorded right in my living room. And there's also the script supervisor named Scott. He put together a little documentary when we had our opening. We premiered the film at a local theater, like a mom-and-pop theater in Baltimore. And he recorded all that and put a nice little documentary together. Tracy's in it, Rob Milkey's in it. Paul Cracker couldn't attend, unfortunately. But it's really nice. So there's a little documentary on there and a nice commentary. And it's neat. Our distributor did a good job with all that. So and I also want to say too, this is what helped. If there's any young filmmaker out there listening, take this into consideration. I remember when I first moved to LA, I met my idol John Carpenter. He was receiving the James Whale Award. My wife and I snuck in, and we got to meet him. And I was right about to do my first short film, Loretta, with Tracy Savage.
Mm-hmm.
And Loretta's going to be online pretty soon. I have a DVD I'm just going to put on YouTube probably. And I'll never forget this. John Carpenter said to me, Mike, I said, do you have any advice? I'm about to make this movie. It's just a short film. It's about 30 minutes long. He said, Mike, the movie is not a bad haircut. It's not going to grow out in 2 weeks. He said, make it look as good as you can possibly get it to look and sound. And he was right. And when it came to the Bone Garden, I used to work in post-production at a post house in Washington, D.C. called Henninger. And I called in a lot of favors. I called my friend Lauren. I said, I just did this film, and, do you think you guys could maybe color correct it for me and make it look as good as you can possibly get it to look? And, I don't have a lot of money. And Lauren said, no, you used to work here. I'll do it on the side. It's just a side project. I won't charge anything. So he did the color correction, and then he liked it so much. Henninger really took me under the wing. They said, Mike, someone should do the audio layback as well. I said, well, that's a huge undertaking. They said, well, let us do it because it looks good. Now you want it to sound good, or it won't be taken seriously at film festivals. So Henninger also did the audio, and anyone who's seen the film, even the distributors I sent it to, and a lot of film festivals are like, wow, your little low-budget film has top-shelf audio and video. And I said, well, I have Henninger to thank for that. And I just never forget John Carpenter. I could have been like, well, it's okay, I'll put it out, and who cares? But I remember John Carpenter telling me, make it look and sound as good as you can possibly get it to look and sound, because the movie's going to be around 20 years from now, 30 years from now, whatever. You know what I mean? I'm not saying my film's timeless. It's not. But you're going to have to live with it for a long time. It's not a bad haircut that goes away in 2 weeks. And I'll never forget when John told me that, and it's advice that I think of every day. Don't cut any corners. Make your film look and sound as good as you can get it to look and sound, or you're going to regret it later. So, and that's what we did. And because of that, post-production took a little longer. It took about 2 years to finish because I was at Henninger's disposal. They only worked on it when they had time because I wasn't paying them. So, but I'm glad I did because of that, it really looked and sounded top shelf. So that's my advice out there to anyone trying to make a movie. Don't cut any corners. Take pride and make sure it looks and sounds great.
You know what? I think one thing that independent filmmakers could benefit from is locations. Find the most interesting locations with personality, to shoot your film, because that helps a lot.
Totally. I totally agree with you. And I think, it's funny, like when you're talking Friday films, the lake is definitely a character.
Mm-hmm. And
I thought that in some of the sequels, especially 3, which I'm fond of 3, and I love Tracy Savage, who's in 3, but there's not enough of they spent so much time on the 3D in that film that there's not enough of the lake. And I think it's just a little man-made lagoon they made anyway. It's not even a real lake. And you lose something. Part 1 and 2 were obviously East Coast. They were very green. They had this wonderful look about them. 3, 4, and 5 were definitely West Coast and less at the lake. And I think you lose something when you get that, like the brown West Coast look as opposed to the green East Coast look. And then 6 and 7 were in the South. And so they have distinct looks about them, very different looks about them. And I think don't ever skimp on the lake in the sequels because it's very much a character in the film. So yeah, we had a lake right near my house, and I thought, okay, this would be great. And it's called Clear Lake, named after my daughter. And I thought, if you find a good location, definitely get something that's going to stand out, and then just shoot something in your backyard or your living room. And in the movie, Tracy's always taking her dog, who's conveniently named Jason, to the lake. They always go to the lake, and that's when they start pulling bodies out of this lake suddenly, and something macabre is going on. But definitely location. If you have it, use it.
It's interesting because in part 3, it's really nice to get that convenience store at the beginning of it, which was a nice little touch in the movie. Even the house had that nice spiral staircase, and it's the only Friday film that I can think of that's got a hammock in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And even the barn, It was a nice little touch. And by the way, speaking of the barn, rest in peace, Gloria Charles. I guess we just recently lost her.
Yeah.
You played.
That was a tough one. Yeah, she was sweet.
Yeah, she played Fox in the movie. Yeah, I just heard about. I guess Larry Zerner had it on his Facebook, and I was like, wow, yeah. So special little mention of that because I heard she was a sweet woman.
Yeah, she was, and it's I think the family, is very proud of it. I think it happened maybe in December or something. It happened a few months ago, and then they went public with it. So yeah, that was really sad. Another interesting fact is Part 3 is the only one that doesn't mention Jason by name. I always found that interesting.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, if you watch it, it's the only one where they don't really know who's. I mean, Chris says, "Oh, it's you," like she's seen him before, but she has no idea it's Jason. Like, Amy Steele goes on this huge rant about Jason and stuff, and even Part 4 and all. That's the only one that doesn't mention Jason by name. That's Part 3.
Oh, I should mention that to Scotty McCoy, who made the Ultimate Friday the 13th trivia book. He oh, yeah. Yeah, he also did the Doubtfire Challenge, and he threw that challenge out to so many of the Friday people.
Okay.
Yep. And Lar Park Lincoln, I guess, has been targeted both by me and him. Yeah. I was just thinking to myself, when you do that three-way camp movie, you get Peter Barton, Tracy Savage. How about Melanie Kahneman?
Yeah, I should have heard her. She'd probably do it in a minute. Yeah.
Yeah. Or even Lar Park Lincoln. Yeah,
or even Kimberly Beck. She's always really sweet when I see her. She was in Part 4. I always thought she, with all due respect to the girls, was definitely the most elegant, attractive final girl.
Oh yeah.
She had this elegance about her. I thought Trish did, and I also like the original ending. They should have gone with that. The original ending. I don't know if you've ever seen that, where they find her mom in the bathtub.
Yeah, I seen that. Yep.
I really like that much better than what they went with, but.
Yeah.
Well, tough decisions to make when you're in the editing room and you're deciding what to leave on the cutting room floor or not. That's always tough.
So I was wondering, who all from, like, you must have met so many of them from the series. Who all have you met and the impression they made on you?
I've met quite a few, and usually they're sweet as sugar, with very few exceptions. The ones who maybe won't probably do conventions. And I guess when I lived in LA, I met a few just on the street. I remember I think the first time I met Amy Steele was actually on like a Bed Bath & Beyond in Studio City.
Okay.
If you can believe that. I also met Deborah Hill there, who was produced, Halloween, of course, and Fog, and all John Carpenter's early films.
She's sad. She's gone.
Yeah, that's tough. Yeah. I know she had cancer. I remember talking to Charles Cyphers about that, and I think she even lost a leg at the end or something.
Oh.
But yeah, she was. It was good to have a female producer. In those days, especially 1978, to have a female producer make such a big splash with a little film like Halloween. That did a lot for just women in general, especially women in film.
Mm-hmm.
And she was a big cornerstone for that. So it was, it was a big loss to lose Deborah Hill. Because, like I said, in those days, in 1978, she was really young, and B, she was a woman, and she made this blockbuster independent horror film and really shook everything up. And so that was something to be said about that.
Yeah. Who else did you meet?
Let's see. Well, Adrienne, I guess, Sean Cunningham. I'm trying to think who I've met from Part 1. And then, let's see, Part 2, Amy, and then Stu, of course. I'm doing their character names. I don't even know.
What was Stu like?
He's great. He's out there. I actually, when I met him, talked to him about Christine, because I'm a huge John Carpenter fan.
Yeah.
He's in Christine, so we talked about that, and Alexandra Paul, which I don't think he was ever on the set with Alexandra. She's another one, sweet as sugar. Hopefully I'll get to work with her on my film, Wood Floors.
Yeah.
She played this great joke on John Carpenter. She has an identical twin. So one day her twin went to the Christine set, and everyone was in on this except John, and they made her up and made her look like Alexandra, and her twin Caroline shows up on the set and goes to the scene, and John's just looking at her like, "What's wrong with Alexandra? She's just not herself." and then the big joke, everybody started laughing, and it was her identical twin. It was this great joke they played on John. He started laughing. Let's see, Part 3, Tracy and Paul and Larry Zerner.
Yeah.
I think that's it from Part 3. I'm trying to. No, Catherine Parks and of course Dana Kimball. They were really sweet, and that's probably my favorite kill in Part 3. The whole harpoon gun in the eye kind of a thing.
When I was talking to Peter M. Brackey, we were talking about the fact that nobody has interviewed Jeffrey Rogers, and he said to me, he said, "There's one you can try to get," and I'm like, can't find any information. And I also heard that Rachel Howard hated doing the film, which is why you never see her anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Now, she was Edna in the beginning?
No, she was the one that was stabbed with a fire poker.
Oh, her. I'm sorry. Yeah, Rachel Howard. My fault. My mistake. Wow. I did not hear that she hated that. I know that Tracy's boyfriend in the film is, I think, a chiropractor in upstate New York.
John Fury?
Tracy's boyfriend in part 3.
Oh, Jeffrey Rogers.
Jeffrey is a chiropractor in upstate New York, I believe. But yeah, I think, I don't know if Tracy's still in touch with him or not. I think maybe she got in touch with him a few years ago. But that's what I heard. But no, it's too bad about Rachel. I never knew that she didn't enjoy the film.
That's just what I heard, but I noticed you never see her at conventions or anything like that. So yeah. But
some people are just private that way. I know. I guess was it Megan in part 6? Some people kind of keep their distance from it. I guess they just move on to other things. It was maybe one part of their life that they don't. Some people embrace it, like Adrienne King. She has Crystal Lake wines and stuff, and other people. Amy Steele is a little guarded, I've found.
Yeah.
Doesn't, she does it, but keeps it kind of at a distance as well. Because I guess, if you have family and stuff, you try to protect your kids from something like that. And I know Laurie Bartram found religion for a while, and she passed on, and she kind of distanced herself from it as well. I think I'm Facebook friends with her son. But it's not, you either embrace it or you kind of walk away from it. And I think it's, some people embrace it and others just kind of say, oh yeah, that's something I did 30 years ago, but that's not who I am now or whatever.
Wonder if her son would come on here. Yeah,
I don't know.
sometimes it's interesting because a lot of times if somebody's passed away, I'll do a tribute interview. Like there was a movie that came out in 1981 called Ms. 45. And, of course, Zoe Tamerlan is no longer with us, but her widow came on my show twice.
Oh, wow.
And I've had Alfred Hitchcock's granddaughter come on here and do a tribute to him.
Oh, that's great. I met her, yeah. She's great. That's excellent. Really, I did not know that. That's excellent.
Yeah, she came on. She had a great time. I had the eldest daughter of Nancy Parsons from Porky's come on here this year.
Okay.
And I've did 2 tribute interviews on Ray Harryhausen in honor of Clash of the Titans, and I had one of the foundation members come on and talk about him. And in fact, that not only was that a great interview, but they put me in touch with Caroline Monroe, who is one of the trustees for the foundation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
So that worked out really well. So oftentimes, I'll do a little tribute interview. I never get personal, like I want people to be comfortable when they come on here, so I try to stick to the film, and whatever they want to reveal they can, but I like to appeal to the midnight crowd, especially because they really love their movies. The midnight crowd does. It's just personal experience. But you were saying part 3 now, our final chapter, who have you met from that?
I think just, I guess, Miss Aronson and then Corey Feldman I met. And Corey and I talked for about 45 minutes about The Burbs. My favorite Corey Feldman film is The Burbs. That's my favorite Tom Hanks film. That's just a great movie, Joe Dante. If you haven't seen The Burbs, check it out. With Bruce Dern, the great Bruce Dern. And so we talked about The Burbs and how I just love Carrie Fisher's in it. It's just this great little movie, Tom Hanks.
What was Judy like?
And I'm sorry?
What was Judy like?
She's great. Yeah, really sweet. Really sweet. She talked about how she got hypothermia in the damn lake, and how I met her and Ted White the same day, and Ted really went to bat for her and said, "Look, either get her out of the water or I'm out of here," because she was like freezing in that lake, which I always thought was a weird kill. That why would see Jason like underwater? And if anything, I always thought water should have been Jason's kryptonite.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? Like, he was afraid of lake because that's where he drowned. So if you went into the lake, you were saved. I always thought, that could have been like base. Like, oh, I'm on base. You can't get me because I'm in the lake, that kind of a thing.
Well,
But
Ted,
I know there was this kill, the awful remake, the Friday the 13th remake. I know there was, I don't know if this was in the first draft of the script. There's a woman who's in the water, and Jason's on land, and she originally, I think, was going to die because she was just too afraid to come out of the water. So I thought, wow, that's really neat. She's afraid to come out of the water. And I don't know if she just ends up freezing to death or just drowning because she's just, Jason's on land waiting for her and she's afraid to come out. So she just drowns. Well, that's a really neat little psychological kill. I thought, I just think Friday should take more chances. Like, I've always wanted to see Friday the 13th in the snow.
Same here. I agree. I wanted to see that too.
Yeah, they all could go up to Crystal Lake to go ice skating or skiing or whatever, and there's a blizzard that hits, and they're stranded up at the lake, and Jason's out there in the snow. I think that would be so awesome. Kind of like John Carpenter's The Thing, isolation and all, and they've never done that. It's like, and they I guess when they do take chances, it has fallen flat. I'm one of the few people, though, who likes Part 9, the final Friday, Jason Goes to Hell. I like how there's no teenagers in that film. It's all basically middle-aged people, and I like that they tried something different. But I've talked to Adam Marcus just via chat, email and stuff, and he said, you can't win for losing. When you give them something different, they get mad because it's not the same thing. Yeah. If it's the run-of-the-mill same thing, they get mad because it's not something different. So
exactly.
But I've always appreciated Part 9, and I found out the interesting trivia. Pete Bracke, I think, actually told me that the reason the New Line Cinemas, they purchased Jason's likeness and his name, but not the Friday name, which is why none of the New Line Cinemas are called Friday the 13th. Okay. Part 9 is called The Final Friday, Part 10 is Jason X, and then there's Freddy versus Jason, because legally they couldn't use Friday the 13th Part 9, which I thought was an interesting bit of trivia there.
I heard Paramount was supposed to do a new one this year, and for whatever reason, kind of went, they pulled the plug on it, which I don't think they should have done.
Yeah, it fell through. I don't know why, but it did fall through. Now instead, there's like full speed ahead on a Halloween sequel that I think John Carpenter's back involved with again and stuff like that. So, it marches on. Well, sometimes it's, I'm sure another sequel will come out. I mean, I don't think any of them, even the ones that didn't do that well, none of them have ever lost money. So that's what it's all about. So, and it's neat how Paramount was so embarrassed. Yeah. By their little cash cow. Because let me tell you, I remember John Carpenter telling me this. He said, Mike, we were treated like pornographers. People would say, how can you do that back in the 80s? Now, horror is this cool thing, and ever since Scream, someone like Courtney Cox can be in a film like that. That never could have or would have happened in the 80s. I mean, they were like these little bastard stepchildren that no one liked to talk about, but made all this money. And so Paramount was always embarrassed of Friday the 13th, but it was a huge cash cow. So funny how the tide has shifted, and now horror is like this respectable genre that everyone wants to take a turn in.
Yeah.
And I remember when I spoke to Amy Steele on the phone one time, she goes, Mike, I had to remind her. I'll never forget this. She goes, I'm not sure why I didn't do Part 3. I remember talking to my agent, and I said, well, I think you didn't do it because back then it was looked down upon. And she goes, you're right. It was almost like doing porn. It was almost like something to be ashamed of back then. And that is completely changed now, where people take pride in it. And, so that's good.
Think how different this franchise would have been had Amy Steele been in Part 3.
I know. It was a great idea, too.
Yeah.
They were going to do she was going to go to the hospital. People were going to start getting bumped off, which I think one of the writers also wrote Part 5. That's kind of what happens in Part 5. Someone goes to the hospital, people start getting bumped off. That's also why there's a barn in Part 5.
Yeah.
I can never pronounce his last name, but the first name is Martin. I think Martin, who wrote Part 3, also had a hand in Part 5, which is why there's, people getting bumped off at the hospital there, and there's a barn in Part 5 as well.
Yeah. Now, speaking of Part 5, and you mentioned pornography, of course, the late Danny Steinman, I guess, did pornography in part of his career. Mm-hmm. Did you know? You knew that?
Yeah, I knew that, and I watched Pete Bracke and Dan Farrens made that great documentary, Crystal Lake Memories, and one of the producers or someone, maybe the script supervisor, they interviewed someone who said, yeah, it was a really awkward day on the set because there's this basically this sex scene that really had to be cut down between Debbie Voorhees and her boyfriend in the movie. So. Yeah, I did hear that. And, it's funny. If I've learned anything from this making one little feature, and just studying film for 25 years, a director's personality shows through in the movie. Okay, so if you're a director who, like Sam Raimi, one of my idols, Sam Raimi, my son's named after him. I named my son Wyatt Raimi.
Oh, wow.
Sam has that boyish charm of like a kid with his first camera making a movie, even though Sam's well into his 50s. He just has that charm of a kid who's right about to make his first film. John Carpenter had that in the early days, and certainly Steve Miner had that. And people have always said, well, Part 5, it seems so sleazy. And then it's like, well, the director, I guess, came from porn, or, the director's personality will show through in the movie. Steve Miner has that wonderful panache, which is why I've always loved Part 2 and 3. And Tommy McLoughlin really has that.
Oh,
panache,
yes, he does.
I've always loved Part 6. It's like a drive-in Saturday night movie. And that's because the director is a guy who celebrates film and filmmaking and loves cinema. Tommy McLoughlin, plain and simple. So
I'm going to say this, and nothing against Danny Steinman, but I think he was the wrong guy to direct Part 5.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I feel like you can really see the, I hate to say this, pornographic element, because out of all the films, the women in Part 5 seem to be objectified really bad.
Yeah. And I think, wasn't Darcy DeMoss supposed to be in Part 5 and didn't for that very reason? Yeah, and she ended up being in Part 6. I never understood why. I mean, I guess they did it with Part 2 and 3, but I would have asked Tommy McLoughlin to come back immediately and do Part 7. Nothing against John Carl, or anything. I just think, I don't know why they wouldn't just stick with something that kept working. And maybe these other directors didn't want to do it or anything. And I know initially Part 6 maybe didn't do so well because Part 5 was such a shock. But 6 has always been one of my favorite.
Well, I know in talking to Melanie Kahneman, and I love Melanie. I remember first time seeing Part 5, and I just thought Melanie was just gorgeous, and she loved it when I just heaved these nice compliments to her. But there was a scene in it, and at the time she didn't know what they were doing, but then she kind of found out, where they asked her to take her bra off, and she did it. And then she found out why, because when they wet her down, you can kind of see through the shirt. Yeah.
It's like a topless scene, absolutely, yeah. So I didn't hear that. So they asked her to take it off. It's funny.
it's kind of dirty, and
yeah. It's funny. And if you watch that movie too, the disappearing pink sweater, it's like a huge continuity error. She's running through the woods, and sometimes the sweater's on her back, and other shots it's not.
She laughs about that today. She said there were so many continuity people on the set, they didn't catch that.
I know, isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I mean, you're working those long hours until late at night, like the famous Halloween 4 story where Donald Pleasance had on like this hat, and they were shooting a scene outside, and for half the night they shot with this hat that he had been wearing, and so they had to come back and he had to take the hat off and had to reshoot all this. It's like no one noticed he was wearing this hat. So like, how could you not notice that? So that's the magic of movies.
Have you met anybody from Part 5? Did you meet Melanie?
I did at a convention, and Debbie.
Oh yeah.
Williams, and that's about it from there.
Yeah, I've had Tiffany Helm on, and I really liked her. I still think Sendo Echo really kind of owes her a little depth.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Of course, Part 6, I guess you said you met Tommy. Did you ever meet Nancy?
Yeah, both of them, and out west, when I was out there. They used to come in this video store I used to work called Dave's Video on Ventura and Laurel Canyon. And real sweet. I mean, so many people came in there. Adrienne Barbeau would come in, and
I had her on. I had her
on.
Yeah, I've interviewed Adrienne Barbeau. Yeah.
Yeah, she's another one. She's just a poem. I mean, and I've written stuff for her. We've actually spoke on the phone before, and if I had funding, I'd put all these. I've always thought, even when I was younger, but if you put these actors in a regular movie, they would probably really thrive and do well. You know what I mean? That's why I love Hollywood's so obsessed with youth, and I'm not. I don't mind middle-aged actors at all, and that's why I love putting people like Tracy Savage or try to put someone like Amy Steele in a movie, just because no one else seems to be knocking on their door anyway, and they're fine actors. They do a great job. They're just in films that in the 80s weren't taken seriously for some reason. So.
And you want me to tell you something? Nothing against Jennifer Lawrence, but I personally think Tracy Savage is better looking.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yep, yep. I'll say that. I mean, I've seen the recent pictures of her on the set of that movie. That movie wasn't shot too long ago. I mean, Tracy still looks good, you know. I'm not going to give her age out, but you know, she still looks stunning.
She looks fantastic.
But
takes care of herself. And,
Hollywood has this problem with women in general in the movies. Unless you're Meryl Streep or Helen Mirren, you struggle to maintain a career.
It's tough. Yeah, I hear. And I've been talking to Alexandra Paul about that.
Yeah.
And she's this wonderful actress who was in a lot of, Dragnet, a lot of big movies. Baywatch was this huge TV series. And I think because she's a certain age, her phone just doesn't ring as much anymore. And so I said, well, I'll put you in the film in a second. So, she's become a pretty good friend. And we've been talking about that and just how the age barrier. And it seems a little easier for men, but even men have to put up with that. Eventually their phone stops ringing no matter who you are, I guess. But for women, you got to be young, and that's why I've always been a huge Kathy Bates fan. I mean, I love that she took her clothes off in About Schmidt, because it's easy to take your clothes off if you look like Jennifer Aniston. It's harder if you're Kathy Bates, and you got to be really brave to do something like that. And About Schmidt's this great film, and I've always loved Kathy Bates because, with very few exceptions, you got to be really stunningly beautiful to be an actress in Hollywood, and it's nice when someone isn't. They can break the mold a little and do something else, something different.
Yeah, and I like the fact that she just did that, and it was like, you know what, screw it. Yeah. But no, the Bone Garden, like I said, I would love to see a Blu-ray release of this, and of course you've got what's your next film? Floorboards.
Yeah, wood floors. Yep.
Wood floors. Okay, sorry. And of course, you got Paul Crackdale back, and you got Tammy. What's her last name?
Tammy Cates. Yeah.
Tammy Cates.
And then Alexandra Paul.
Okay. So, yeah.
Go ahead. No, we're just plugging away on.
I was going to say, tell us a little bit about Tammy Cates, because I'm not familiar with her, and you had her in Bone Garden.
Yeah, she saved the day, and she, like I said, for the most part, most of the actors in the movie had day jobs, and Tammy's the only one who she's an actress. That's it. You know what I mean? So she came in and she nailed it, saved the day, and everyone who was from post production, when I was editing, when I was in Henninger doing the online stuff, they were like, wow, this girl really knows it, and you could just tell. You know what I mean? She came in, again, with hardly any preparation, took her character real seriously, got her hair done a special way, and she did really great. And we owe her a great debt. And she lives, I think, in Glendale, California. She's from Denver. And her husband, is a lawyer, and he does that, during the day. And that enables her to go on auditions and stuff and just pursue acting full time. And I'm hoping she... I'm hoping to keep using her, and I'm hoping other people will see it and want to use her as well, because she really stands out in the film. And I was actually glad that the other Friday alumni backed out, because there's no way she would have held a candle to what Tammy did. Tammy just nailed it.
Tell me about working with Alexandra Paul.
Yeah, she's something. She's another one who's very I like actors and actresses. Kurt Russell does this. He makes wine now, his own wine up in wine country in California. Alexandra has a bunch of other things going on. She's an activist. She's a vegan. She is a life coach now, like a wellness coach. Like she gets people in shape and stuff through diet, because 80% of it's diet. So, and she acts. So it's not like her whole life. She has all kinds of things going on. And we talked for a long time a couple weeks ago at Schiller. We sat down together, and I sent her my other script, too, because I had this other script called Shadows that takes place at the lake. And I thought, maybe we could, again, just like the Bone Garden, maybe we'll make this little film first, and then we'll make Wood Floors kind of a thing. Because I wrote Shadows real quick after not writing a screenplay in, 2 years. And I thought, wow, I could bang this out this fall in, 14 days. I better, if there was a summer camp, that would just let us go on there in the off-season, and everyone could stay at the camp, and we could just shoot there, and boom, be done. So Alexandra's been great, really gung-ho, good, and she, again, stunningly beautiful and inside and out, and just super talented and super patient, super professional, and she's been really great.
It's interesting you mentioned life coach, because I've had Betsy Russell on here, and she's also a life coach.
I think Amy Steele is, too.
Oh,
pretty
yeah?
sure that's what Amy does now. Licensed life coach, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she lives in Oregon somewhere now, and she does that.
Yeah, I
And
know.
I've even approached her. I'm like, well, hey, what are your rates? Because I'd be willing to, as I'm in the midst of a midlife crisis, I'm like, hey, maybe you can help me out. So, but she didn't get back to me. So maybe her rates are too high.
I don't know. I really appreciate people like you that go out there and make these independent movies. Like, I'm from here in Fredericton, New Brunswick, and of course, we've got films that are made here, but they're not seen like real worldwide. Do you know where I'm located here in New Brunswick, Canada?
No, where is that?
Okay. Do you know where Nova Scotia is, like Halifax, Nova Scotia?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, we're located right alongside that.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, I always ask people, like our biggest celebrities are the Trailer Park Boys. You familiar with them?
Yeah, I am, a little vaguely, but I am.
Gee, you should get them in a movie with Tracy.
Yeah.
I love the Trailer Park Boys, and of course we're just celebrating the fact that we got a sequel coming out to Bon Cop Bad Cop, which was knocked out Porky's as Canada's highest grossing film.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and if you haven't seen Bon Cop Bad Cop, it's actually a bilingual film.
Oh, okay.
It's in English and French, and that's part of the plot device in the film.
Okay, wow, interesting.
Yeah, but we make the independent films here, but in Canada, because government funding is so bad here for film, we don't get a lot of the films that we used to. Because I remember when Canada used to have some really, really great movies come out here, like, Class of 1984, Meatballs, and Curtains, and stuff like that. Black Christmas, And I've had a few people from those movies on the show, and it's fun to promote those films. But I don't know. Canada just doesn't get behind the arts the way it should, and I would like to see films get made here as opposed to films get made here but yet are an American film.
Right, sure, yeah.
Yeah, and that's always kind of bothered me. Like, I heard Deadpool was shot in Canada, but yeah, it's American film, Like, it'd be nice to have something like Canada and just slap its Canadian flag on,
Right, sure, I hear you, yeah.
Yeah. So what else is coming up in the future? You got Bone Garden, you got Wood Floors.
Yeah, Wood Floors, and then I just wrote a little film called Shadows that I'm still trying to hash out. And then I wrote a book of Halloween poetry that I'm kind of self-publishing. It's called Autumn Harvest. So
Okay.
I try to promote that. And then my wife's an artist. She does sculpture, so she's doing like a little kind of statue for a school not too far from our house.
Okay.
So we just kind of try to stay creative and stay above water, because a lot of times creative is Latin for broke, because you're not getting paid to do any of this. But I always tell people, and this sounds maybe pretentious, I don't mean to, but I always tell people, you know what, I do it for the outcome, not for the income. So,
you know what? Same here. I do these. Right now I'm a volunteer here doing these interviews, and I just love doing. I had somebody approach me say, "Why aren't you getting paid for this? You're good at it." And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know how to do that and get paid, but I'll tell you." It's not about being paid. It's about, this is just fun. Like Bone Garden, for example. When I put this out, there's people that'll hear this, and hopefully it'll result in some you selling some more copies of that. And,
yeah, that'd be nice. Just getting more. I just want people to see it. You know what I mean? And
I want to see it. I want to see this film. Now, here's what I'd like to do. I would like to order a copy of that film, and I suppose if it's not on Blu-ray yet, well, I guess I'll have to grin and bear it. Is there a way I can order that from you, and I'd be willing to pay for it?
Yeah, you can order. It's on our website, bonegardenmovie.com, but it's also on Amazon, and it's places like that you can get it. So yeah, like I said, if you I'd be more than happy to send you one and autograph it for you and that kind of stuff. But I wish it was on Blu-ray, but the distributor didn't. I don't think they wanted to spend too much money on it because they weren't sure. Because I can tell you too, when you're shopping it around for distributors, some of these distributors are like used car salesmen, and they're very sleazy.
Yep.
And at least 10 different occasions, the first thing they said was how much nudity is in it and how much blood. and there's no nudity because I don't need to exploit someone to, further my movie. And there's very little on-screen violence because I'm an Alfred Hitchcock, John Carpenter fan, and
Yep.
they didn't need to do that, so I didn't do that. So it was hard actually finding distribution. What did it for us was the Friday alumni, and the fact that I was lucky enough to find a middle-aged producer who loved the fact that I put these middle-aged people in a movie. And it's funny, interesting enough, it's a movie, it's a relationship between two best friends, two girls, two women. And because of that, the distributor pitched it to Lifetime, and Lifetime even watched it. And of course, I would have to completely re-edit it, and I would have had to change the ending. But Lifetime considered showing it on their network because it's about two women and how they try to figure out who's killing people in this town. So that was kind of on, just to be considered. I was like, wow, that's really on. It's an honor just being nominated, kind of a thing. I'm like, wow, the fact that Lifetime's looking at my movie, that's pretty cool. But they ended up passing on it because we would have had to make some major edits in it that would have changed the movie. But hey, you know what? I was happy just to be considered.
Yeah. You know what, though, too? It's interesting because there's so many horror films coming out now that really aren't that good, and yet they're passing on yours.
Yeah, I know. It's tough. And the film festival circuit's tough. It's very political. We got denied the Maryland Film Festival, even though we shot in Baltimore. It can be very discouraging. You just got to grin and bear. We got distribution. That's what counts. People are seeing it. That's what counts. I'm talking to people like you. That makes it all worth it. But it's a tough, long, very grim road. So stick with it. Chin up, and you're going to get a lot of hits. Just keep getting up after the hits and dust yourself off and keep plugging away because eventually it does pay off. It's just a tough, rocky road, as she says in Friday the 13th Part 1, rocky road. It is.
So if I order this movie off your website, will you get the money?
It's funny. There's two links on my website. One is for the movie, and that comes directly from the distributor. But then if you click on the Autumn Harvest link, that's the link to my book. That comes from me. So what I've been telling people to do is say, if you really wanted me to sign it or whatever, go to my website, order my book, Autumn Harvest, and I'll just send you the movie instead. And that way I'll be able to sign it. Because if you click on the link for the movie, you'll get the movie, but it'll come from the distributor, so I won't, sign it or anything like that, which is fine. I mean, either way, you're going to get the movie. But if you want me to, autograph it or whatever like that, I said, just order my book, Autumn Harvest, but instead I'll send you the movie.
Okay. You mind if I add you on Facebook so I can stay connected?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Because
we'll probably have a lot of mutual friends.
Oh, yeah, we will. Because I would like for you to benefit if I order this movie,
Sure, I understand. I appreciate that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, just order my book, and I'll gladly send you the movie, and then and I'll put a bug in Tracy's ear, and certainly Ron Milkey would be more than happy to talk to you.
You know what? It would mean so much to me if you could get Tracy Savage to come on my show, because she is one of my bucket list people I would love to have on here. If you could get her on here, and I promise you I'll treat her as well as I treated you.
Absolutely,
I'll stick to the...
I'll vouch for you. I'll send her. I'll give her a call today, and I'll tell her to look out for you, and I'll shoot you her email address once she okays it, and then I'll shoot you Ron Milkey. She'd be more than happy to talk to you as well.
I'd love to have Ron Milkey on, and I'd love to have Tracy Savage on. You would have no idea, Mike, how much it would mean to me to have Tracy Savage come on my show.
That's great. I'm so glad to hear you say that, because it's funny. She has this little cult following. In fact, one of the actors in The Bone Garden, he plays like an inept police officer. He's Ron Milkey's deputy.
Okay.
And his name is George Stover. And he just was... There's a scene with him and Tracy in the movie, and originally that was going to be off camera. You would just hear the audio. And George came to me very politely, but very like a starstruck fan. He said, Mike, I idolize Tracy. I've been watching her for years. If you could put this scene on camera, I'd be forever grateful. So we ended up shooting it. And it was because George just had this love affair with Tracy Savage. And there's a lot of people out there like you and like George who are just, she's like their favorite one, in
Yep.
Part 3. And I mean, so many people who think Part 3 is the best one, and they think Tracy Savage is the best one in it. So it's neat to talk to people like you and George and others who are in the movie and stuff who just love Tracy Savage. She's just very lovable, and she just has this energy about her that's very approachable and very positive energy and very, very down to earth energy. And it's really wonderful.
Yeah, no, that would mean a lot. I mean, I know Larry Zerner turned me down and he was polite about it, but I hope Tracy don't turn me down. And it's an open invitation. She doesn't have to do it right away. I'll do it whenever it's good for her.
Sure, absolutely. And she'd love to promote the film too. I mean, obviously everybody knows she was in Friday Part 3, but The Bone Garden is not quite as popular, so she'd love to promote the movie. So
I would love to talk to her about Bone Garden too, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, it was, like I said, it was her that kind of led me to you. Because of her, because I was looking for her, I started kind of digging about Bone Garden because it kind of got my curiosity, you know?
Sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'd love to have Ron Milkey on. I'd love to have Tracy Savage on. That would mean a lot to me, you know. So I thank you a lot. Is there anybody else from the series that you know that would be open to coming on here?
I'm trying to think. Ron, Paul actually lives like kind of around the world now. He kind of moved to like the South Pacific. So I'm trying to think of who else could you might want to talk to. Have you tried to approach like Steve Dash from Part 2? Or
I sent him a message on Facebook, but did not hear back.
Okay, yeah. Some of these guys, like I know Ron's never on there, never on Facebook. He's better to contact via email. I'll rack my brain for sure, and because you've had Adrienne King on, correct?
Oh yeah, yep.
And I wonder if Amy Steele would do it if it was, she has like a fan Facebook page. You could try to contact her through that. And let's see, I'm trying to think. Maybe Kimberly Beck from Part 4. She seems pretty approachable as well.
I've reached out to Kimberly. Might have been a couple weeks ago. I haven't heard back from. But sometimes it takes a while. When I interviewed Lynn Griffin from Black Christmas, I heard back from her 6 months later because she was kind of off touring. And Lynn Griffin set me up with a lot of people, including her husband, Sean Sullivan from Ski Patrol. So, and she, of course, led me to Nick Mancuso, of course, the voice of Billy in Black Christmas. So
sure,
it's all about networking, And, of course, if you treat people well, people want to come on the show.
Sure.
But even you mentioned Halloween, like I've had Dick Warlock on. I would love to get somebody from the original. One person I'd love to get is PJ Souls. I always loved her,
Yeah.
Yep. But
have you reached out to her at all?
I've messaged her on Facebook. Haven't heard back yet. I interviewed Day Young, who was in Rock and Roll High School, and she said that to keep trying.
Yeah.
But speaking, you said your wife's into sculpting. Day Young is into sculpting as well.
Oh, wow, that's neat.
Yeah. But, a lot of times, like, I've had this happen where I do an interview with somebody and somebody will say, yeah, you treated me well. I'll send a good word out to you to so-and-so or so-and-so. And because, it's further promotion and, it's good for people. I'm going to tell you a little story. I had the acid program on here conked out on me and I was talking to Keith Coogan from Adventures of Babysitting for about an hour and a half, and the thing conked out, and the interview was lost. And
wow.
Yeah, and talk about a stand-up guy. He's scheduled to come on later this month. He said he'd come back on, and you know why? Because number one, I treated him well. And I also talked about films that he hardly gets to talk about, like not just about Adventures of Babysitting, which he's promoting for its 30th anniversary, but some of the smaller films he done. And he said he really liked that touch.
Mm-hmm, sure.
And he said, yeah, he'd come back on. And I was like, I always tell people, especially here at the station, if you're doing interviews, treat them well because that will go with you.
Mm-hmm.
But, I really enjoyed having you on here today and talk about the Bone Garden. And I definitely got to order a copy of this. So you say go on there and order the book. And
yeah, absolutely. And I'll be more happy to send you the movie.
And, sign the movie. What is the book again?
The book's called Autumn Harvest. And it's like a collection of Halloween tales and stuff that I'd written.
Oh, yeah?
And, Yeah, I'll send you both. Yeah. And it's cool. Yeah, I adore Halloween. It's like, I always take 2 weeks off around October, end of October. It's like a holy day around here. You know what I mean? It's like Christmas here. We always, my wife and I, with our family, we'll do a Halloween card we send out instead of a Christmas card. A family Halloween card and all. It's like a big time of year for us.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love films like The Scary Godmother with Jill Thompson and of course, Halloween Town and Trick or Treat. That's a good movie. And of course, John Carpenter's Halloween, stuff like that.
Yeah, and you got to meet John Carpenter. That was pretty awesome, huh?
Yeah, a couple times. He's great, real good advice and real down to earth, and he's just a master. When you see, just how simple the original Halloween is. You don't. That taught me lessons too. You don't need bells and whistles. And it's funny, when I was editing The Bone Garden, the film I was watching the most, ironically, was John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness, which is a film that really breathes and takes its time. Nowadays, it's always so quick cut and everything's so fast-paced and bang, bang, bang. I remember, because I have a news background with Tracy, I remember thinking, what, let this breathe. Let it take its time. Let it be a slow cook, like a crock pot kind of a thing. Don't just fire too quickly, too fast, too soon. And it's funny, when I met John, it's so funny, too, because music's a big deal. And I remember saying, John, I love the music for Prince of Darkness. And John kind of set me up. He gave this little sly look, and he said, hum a few bars of it. And I was struck. I was like, oh, my God. I couldn't. He goes, you can't, can you? I go, no. I mean, I love the score for Prince of Darkness, but I can't hum it right now. And he said, that's a valuable lesson. He said, the score of a movie should be like carpet under your feet, and eventually you shouldn't really notice it anymore. And it should be really subtle. And that said, Halloween is like the most identifiable horror film ever, theme ever. But it was a valuable lesson he taught me. It's like, that's right. It should be just very subtle. Don't do stuff that's in your face. So Prince of Darkness, I always thought, was a very subtle film of his. It took its time and was really scary and really well done. But it takes its time getting there. And sometimes, and I think by doing that, I wonder if the Bone Gardens had a hard time finding an audience, because this generation is so quick, and MTV quick cuts and stuff. And my film is not like that at all. I wanted it to just breathe and take its time and have nice long shots and take its time getting there.
I wanted to ask you, speaking of horror films, like I said, you're about a year older than me, so you grew up with the same stuff I did. So what horror films are your favorite, especially growing up?
Growing up, probably Halloween and The Fog.
Okay.
Two John Carpenter staples. Probably The Thing, even though I guess you could say that's science fiction. Definitely the original Friday the 13th. Mm-hmm. And it's ironic now, but I've never been a huge fan of the hockey mask. Especially when I had children, part one really resonated with me because of the simple premise of a woman driven mad over the loss of her son. Mm-hmm. I thought I can really identify with that now that I have kids. So Halloween, The Fog, Friday, the original Friday, God, I'm going to say probably Evil Dead 2.
Oh, yeah.
It's just a staple. Of course, Psycho.
Mm-hmm.
I've always loved Carnival of Souls, 1962, Herc Harvey. My wife and I, when we lived in Colorado, drove to Lawrence, Kansas. If you haven't seen Carnival of Souls, drop everything and watch it. 1962.
Okay. All right.
And I've met two of the people in it. Candace Hilligoss is in it. And when we went to Lawrence, Kansas, we looked in the phone book. The director had passed on, Herc Harvey. He died in 96. But John Clifford was still alive. This was back in 2003. He was like 86 years old. And we looked him up in the phone book. And, we were in L.A. where everyone's so guarded and everything's so, oh, my God, get off my property. What are you doing? Kind of thing. Because there's tons of fans out there. This guy invites us over to his house. My wife and I go over to John Clifford's house. We sit in his living room. After looking him up on the phone book and cold calling him, and we sat there and talked about Carnival of Souls for probably an hour and a half. And he was just real down to earth. He told us all these stories. It was this great little black and white film shot in Lawrence, Kansas, and Salt Lake City, Utah in 1962. And he was just, he showed us all this memorabilia. He signed all my stuff, and he was just tickled pink that we drove all the way to Lawrence, Kansas to visit the filming locations and to meet him. And so that was a real treat. So check out Carnival of Souls if you haven't already. And And I guess, like I said, Evil Dead 2 and, you know, Psycho and stuff like that. But then the stuff that actually came out in, like, Black Christmas, I thought was terrifying.
The original,
the original Black Christmas.
I've done a couple of interviews from that movie. I was very happy about it.
That is a scary movie. Creep Show, as important as Night of the Living Dead is, George Romero, that could be the most important horror film ever made, with the most social commentary in any horror film. But ironically, my favorite George Romero film was always Creep Show, 1982. I mean, that's just a great movie, Tim King.
Okay.
And so films like that, just staples, you know. And again, I've always loved Halloween 3, even though it wasn't a Michael Myers sequel. I always thought it was a very powerful Halloween-themed movie.
Yeah, to me, like a lot of the ones I enjoyed, like Halloween, The Exorcist. I like Dressed to Kill, Brian De Palma.
That's very homage to Psycho. Sure, that's a scary movie.
Well, a lot of people from 1980, they always mention Friday the 13th and The Shining. Both are, I like both, but I'm like, I always get a little put off. They never mention Dressed to Kill, which I think, to me, is as good as The Shining, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, of course,
very disturbing. Yeah, very disturbing. And Keith Gordon from Christine's in that movie as well. So.
Yeah. I've been trying to get an interview from Dressed to Kill, and Nancy Allen seems very, very unresponsive. But I'm like, either him or Keith Gordon. But I'm like, guys, come on out and promote your film, you know. You know, because
exactly, I know.
Yeah, we got like this new Netflix generation. It's like, you know, come on, let's try to save your film from the digital age and get it out there. I like Miss 45 a lot too, which I kind of discovered through that compilation tape Terror on the Isles, and and love.
That's on Blu-ray. I have that on Blu-ray. Yeah, that's a great little doc.
Is it on Blu-ray, Terror in the Isles?
Yeah, it's on as a special feature. Halloween 2 came out twice, once from Universal, once from Shout Factory, and on the Universal one, it's one of the special features.
Terror in the Isles?
You should be able to get that on Amazon. Or, you know, Halloween 2. Just go get the Shout Factory version. Get the Universal version, which I think came out, I want to say maybe in 2012. I only have a copy here somewhere. But yeah, it's one of the extra special features.
Well, that was like an hour-and-a-half documentary just on horror films.
Yeah, and Donald Pleasance and in there with Karen. Yeah.
Oh wow. I didn't know that, because that was where I discovered an awful lot of horror films. And I remember Miss 45, I'd seen clips from that, and it just made an impression. I was so sad to hear Zoe had passed away, but I was so happy her husband came on twice and did an interview. I've been complimented a lot on those two interviews as well by people that were just happy to hear more about her, and I like that. I've been fortunate enough to avoid negativity in my interviews, so
sure, good.
I love hearing from fans that say, "Yeah, thanks for posting this." I had that on the Tiffany Helms interview. Somebody said, "Thanks for posting this." You know, I was like, "That's fun to have people say that." Because these are not,
absolutely, yeah,
because these are not A-list actors, you know, and
I know, that's the thing, I know.
Yeah.
And, another film I love from the '80s, though, that which I think has a lot of panache and stuff, is Sleepaway Camp. And the sequels. And it's a little known fact that that's Bruce Springsteen's sister in there. You know, Sleepaway Camp 2 and 3. So
is it his sister? I thought it was his daughter.
No, that's Pamela Springsteen's his sister. Yeah.
I didn't know that. I thought. I don't know where I read, but I read somewhere that was his daughter.
No, that's his younger sister, yeah. And she's really great. Yeah, she's really great. And I've always loved the Sleepaway Camp sequels, and they just came out on Blu-ray as well, and they're really, lots of cool special features and stuff. But I'm actually holding that, Halloween documentary. It came out a few years ago, and it's just a Universal one. And one of the special features is definitely Terror in the Isles. So try to track that down if you can. And it was a big stink because in the beginning, they have since fixed it, but in the beginning, they removed Mustafa Akkad Presents, which Mustafa Akkad Presents is at the beginning of every Halloween film. Okay. And for some reason, Universal took it off for this Blu-ray, and the fans raised this big stink, and I think they had to go back and correct it. But the copy I had, it says Universal Presents Halloween 2 instead of Mustafa Akkad, which was like this huge uproar.
Wow. Yeah. No, it's interesting you mentioned Pamela Springsteen, because I'm set very soon to interview somebody from Fast Times at Ridgemont High that worked with Pamela Springsteen in that movie. So,
yeah, that's his youngest sister. I think he has an older sister and a younger sister. I'm not too sure, but yeah, she's in part 2 and 3, and she was when my wife and I lived in LA, we I think saw her from like a distance. She was into photography. In fact, she took a lot of pictures of Bruce for his album covers, most notably The Ghost of Tom Joad. And like she was like, we were in Santa Monica, and she was like across the street, and like, oh my God, look, that's Pamela Springsteen, and we just couldn't get to her to say hi in time or anything like that. But it was neat to see her. But yeah, she's not in the making of documentary. Again, I guess maybe she was like, hey, that was back in the '80s. I'm over that now. But that's, yeah, it's definitely his youngest sister. Which whenever I watch Sleepaway Camp 2, I always think to myself, wow, Bruce has probably seen this movie. You know what I mean? I think it's kind of funny because his sister's in it. But I used to ask trivia questions and give stuff away, and I'd be like, I would say, I would show like a clip from the film when I was DJing and stuff like that and say, this is somebody really famous, his younger sister, whoever gets it right gets a T-shirt. And no one could ever figure it out because she doesn't really look like Bruce that much. So like, that's Bruce Springsteen's sister, Pamela. Her brother's kind of an icon in music, whether you like it or not. So.
How much do you want to bet Bruce never crosses her?
Yeah. Hey, that's not someone you want to piss off. Angela from Sleepaway Camp.
They never did make a 4th film, and they could have. They left that open.
I think they made a part 4 and brought back the original Angela.
Oh, really?
Yeah, check that out. It has a real twist ending. I know they started to make a part 4 and it was abandoned, and there were clips on YouTube and stuff. And then they did make a part 4, which I think you can get them all in a box set. I'm not for sure though. And they brought back the original Angela. And I remember seeing it. My wife and I watched it. And part 1 had a shocking ending. The original Sleepaway Camp.
Oh
my God.
Well, I was wondering. Do you think? You probably don't have any inside information on this, but do you think by any possibility that Paramount will reconsider and put out the new Friday?
I don't know. It's all about money, so I can't imagine they would say no, but you never know. I don't know. In this age of remakes and stuff too, I don't know. It's tough. I don't know. I must say I'm not a fan of really any of these remakes. I think some of them are just atrocious, and it's a shame that there's not a lot of original ideas anymore. In fact, I tell you, I meet a lot of fans, and they say, we're going to make this fan-made Halloween movie. We're going to make a fan Friday the 13th movie. I'm like, guys, why don't you take the inspiration and make your own movie? I said, that's what I did at the Bone Garden. I took Friday the 13th actors, but made my own movie. My movie has a huge step to Psycho, huge step to Halloween, huge step to Friday the 13th. You can pay homage, but make your own movie. Instead of just making a fan-made Friday the 13th film up at the lake, try to do something different with the inspiration. That's all.
It's kind of like, and I hate to use this as a reference, but kind of like the writer of 50 Shades of Grey did with Twilight. We got to forget that I said that, but yeah, there's a few remakes I think that did work, like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 1978. You got to admit that was very, very good.
Oh, sure, that was before they happened every week. I agree. I even like the remake of Night of the Living Dead, 1990, with Pat Tallman. Absolutely.
And I'm
saying now, like the Texas Chainsaw and the Fridays, and there seems to be two camps with Halloween. I mean, no offense to Rob Zombie, I do think he has his own style, a signature style, but I was not a fan of his Halloween films at all. Maybe that's because Halloween is my Citizen Kane. Mm-hmm. I have the artwork tattooed on my arm. I don't know, but I just thought, you know what? Why don't we just do something original? Rob Zombie could have invented his own original character and made his own movie. That way we'd have Freddy, Jason, Michael, and whatever Rob invented. Like, I don't know, instead of remaking a masterpiece, just make your own film and be inspired by that masterpiece. That's where I stand on that.
And I heard John Carpenter.
John Carpenter's The Thing is a remake, you know what I mean? But in this day and age where they seem to happen every Friday, a new one will come out, and I just think, why don't we just do something original or just something different, not just, remake something, especially if it's iconic, like when Gus Van Sant, a great filmmaker, remade Psycho. I couldn't
Oh,
believe that.
how bad was that? It won won 3 Razzies though.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, and I love a good bad movie. I mean, I gave a lecture at a college recently, and I love a good Ed Wood bad movie.
Do you like The Room?
And I always give an example: a good bad movie, Jaws 3; a bad movie, Jaws 4. So
do you like The Room?
I love Jaws 3D because it's like if Ed Wood had made a Jaws film, it would have been Jaws 3D with Dennis Quaid. But there's a line that gets drawn where it's like a good bad movie or a bad movie. So,
do you like The Room?
Yeah, absolutely, sure. Absolutely.
Yeah,
and you need to watch Carnival of Souls if you haven't already. 1962.
I've got to watch that. Yeah, I was going to mention too. Girl with the Dragon Tattoo had a really good remake too, but because he had David Fincher behind it.
Yeah. And if you get someone really talented, that's what happened with Psycho with Alfred Hitchcock. There was all these black and white kind of schlock films. Peeping Tom was one of them coming out, and Hitchcock wondered, I wonder what would happen if somebody really good made one of these movies, which is one of the main reasons Psycho is black and white when it so easily could have been shot in color. He's like, you got these black and white schlock movies coming out by these filmmakers. What if somebody who really knew what the hell was going on made one of them? And boom, he was making Psycho. So, and originally Psycho was panned. It was called A Blot on an Honorable Career. And then by the end of the year, 8 out of the 10 critics who panned it had it on their top 10 list. So that's the other thing. Sometimes you have to rewatch a movie. That happened with Halloween. Halloween was bashed, and then this review came out in the Village Voice saying, you might want to rewatch this film and look at it from this perspective. And Jamie Lee Curtis has said over and over again, the film didn't really succeed right away. Halloween, it took a little time, and boom, all of a sudden, it was it was being hailed as this masterpiece of modern horror cinema.
And John Carpenter was not impressed with the remake of Halloween either.
No, and like I said, I try never to bash another filmmaker's work. You know what I mean? In fact, there's a famous producer whose name escapes me now, but at the end of every movie, he'll stand up and applaud, whether it's a great movie or a piece of trash, because he knows how much of a Herculean effort it is to make a movie in the first place, no matter who you are. If you're me or Steven Spielberg, it's a Herculean effort to get something on the screen. So this producer, his name escapes me, I forget his name, but at the end of every movie, he stands up and applauds, no matter how bad or how good it is, because it's so hard to get a movie made. So I don't like to bash anyone for making a movie, but it's like, leave the masterpieces alone and make your own movie. I don't understand why that's even being considered.
I don't know why they don't remake the garbage. Like Pearl Harbor was garbage. Remake it and take the love triangle out.
Yeah, remake Halloween 5 or Friday the 13th Part 5. Don't remake Halloween Friday the 13th Part 1 or whatever. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but they can't remake Part 5.
That's what happened with Psycho. Psycho 2 had this kind of bogus ending, and it was so bogus that they kind of made Part 3 to say, you know what, disregard that last ending. This is what really happened, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I heard rumors that Psycho 3 was supposed to be shot in black and white. That in the studio, panned that idea because Anthony Perkins was directing and all, and that I always thought Psycho 3 could have been so much better. There was even this idea of making like a copycat killer where it turns out it wasn't Mother, it was this other person and all, and those are great ideas. And I hate when really good ideas kind of fall flat, like Halloween H2O, I think, was supposed to have a copycat killer, and then suddenly Michael Myers shows up. And that's the other one. I mean, a lot of people are champions of H2O, and I'm a Steve Miner fan, but I was never really into Halloween H2O. A, there's like 10 different masks in it.
Yeah.
And B, I just think it was just too many cooks in the kitchen, and the movie, I thought, could have been a lot better than it was.
Sometimes I think the studios just kind of need to step away and let a person make their film.
Exactly, I agree.
Yeah. So what's
the business of making films will always clash with the art of making films, and that's that way in any art form, I guess. So the bottom line is keep plugging away, and that's why I love being independent. Just doing the independent thing, and just having as much or total control, as opposed to giving over the control to someone in a suit who just is looking at it from a financial perspective.
Is there anybody like I know you worked with Tracy Savage, you worked with Alexandra Paul, you worked with some great talents. But is there anybody you really are aiming to work with that you want to hope that you can get the budget to work with?
Oh, sure, Kurt Russell by far.
Okay.
Kurt Russell is definitely my hero. Has been my hero since I was a little boy. I guess I'm in the top 5. Like Kurt Russell and Jeff Bridges. I'd love to put those two guys in a movie together. Kurt and Jeff have always been heroes of mine. And until Jeff finally won an Oscar, I think both men are criminally underrated.
And how? And
actresses, Maria Bello is one of my favorites. She's in David Cronenberg's A History of Violence, one of my favorite films of all time.
Yeah.
Really adore her. Sissy Spacek. I love how no one else looks or sounds like her.
Yeah.
In Hollywood,
Yeah.
great actress.
Yeah.
Those 4 people definitely. And it's funny. I wrote a screenplay for Rosemarie DeWitt, who works with Lynn Shelton. My favorite filmmaker working right now is probably Lynn Shelton. She made this wonderful film called Touchy Feely.
Okay.
With Rosemarie DeWitt, and my buddy went to college with her, so he reached out to her. She went to Hofstra, and my buddy, one of my oldest friends, went to Hofstra, so he sent her an email. Hasn't heard back, I was like, well, it might be a year from now she'll reply. You never know. But I wrote something for her that I think if she read it, she'd really like it. Maybe she has enough clout that could help get it made. She was in my favorite Jonathan Demme, Rest His Soul movie, Rachel Getting Married. So I'm a huge Rosemarie DeWitt fan, and I'm a huge Demme fan. It was a very big loss when he died a few days ago.
Yeah, and somebody from a Halloween franchise you might want to reach out to is maybe Pamela Susan Shoop. I tried to get her on my show, and I couldn't. Her contact information on her webpage wasn't working. So what I did, I noticed on her webpage you could order photos. So I wrote the address down, and I sent a money order and ordered an autographed picture, but I put a note in there and give her an invitation to come on my show. She sent me a beautiful autographed picture. She said due to her scheduling, she wouldn't be able to come on my show. But boy, I love the fact she took the time to write me a nice note.
Yeah, that's neat. Yeah, I've met her at a convention once, and she seemed really sweet and stuff. And yeah, it's someone who I definitely would love to. I had this thing I told my wife. I said I'd love to every movie I make put some alumni from one horror franchise in it, as like even an uncredited cameo. Like, oh, there's so and so from Halloween 3, or there's I've reached out to Rachel Crothers from Halloween 4 and 5. You know what I mean, Ellie, and I had never heard back from her, but because that's someone who I'd love to put in a movie. And I even had someone who was like very close to Jamie Lee Curtis, and I sent him a script to give to her. And I haven't heard anything, but you never know. The phone could ring 8 months from now, and it could be Jamie Lee, and she might say, "Hey, I finally read your script. I like it." So.
You might need to talk to my one of my interviewees, Scotty McCoy, who wrote the Ultimate Friday the 13th trivia book, because he's doing one on Halloween, and he managed to get Jamie Lee Curtis to write the foreword.
Oh wow! Well, good for him. That's excellent.
Yeah. He said he just reached out to her on Twitter, and it's like, wow, like
that's excellent.
It kind of makes me wonder if I could get her on my show, because I never ever thought that she would come on here, but
yeah. She's pretty approachable that way. She did a convention with my friend Sean Clark.
Okay.
She only did one in Indianapolis, and and all the proceeds, they charge for their autograph at these things, and all of her proceeds went to the Children's Hospital in Los Angeles. So, I know she is. You can reach her if you try hard enough, or take the right avenue. So.
Yeah. Well, you know what though, I really have enjoyed having you on here today and talking about the Bone Garden. I'm definitely going to order a copy of this. You know what? If it comes out in Blu-ray, I'll order it on Blu-ray as well. But you know what? You've got me convinced. I've seen too many clips. I got to look at this. It's got Tracy Savage in it, so I'm already sold just based on that.
Okay, yeah. And if it comes out on Blu-ray, I'll send you one for free. I promise.
Yeah, I definitely want to order off your site, because I want you to get the proceeds from it. And
yeah, and reach out to me on Facebook, and it's been an honor talking to you, and I twist my arm to talk about cinema. I'll do this every Sunday if you want. That's fine with me. But I'm glad you reached out, and I will certainly touch base with Tracy and Ron later today, and try to get them on.
If Tracy don't come on, I might break down. Oh no, I like it's an open invitation for Tracy. I'll do it when it's good for her. She's in California, right?
Yes, she's in Los Angeles.
Perfect, because then I know the time zone different. You're 4 hours behind me, and people in actually you're an hour. I think you're an hour behind me, but it's easy to do LA interviews because I can always get my day job done, and they're 4 hours behind me. They're a treat to do, you know.
Sure.
Yeah, so I would love to have Tracy on here. That would be one of the bucket list people. And
okay, yeah, absolutely. I'll reach out to her. No worries.
Yeah, and I'm going to throw this out here too, just in case you're interested. The Doubtfire Face Challenge. I've been throwing that out to everyone it's for suicide and depression after Robin Williams' unfortunate passing.
Sure.
And like I said, Nancy McLaughlin has done it.
Okay.
I'll even send you the link where she did it, and Lisa Langlois did it. Deborah Shelton's even set to do it.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I've had Deborah Shelton on here, and she said she's going to do it. But, it's for suicide, depression. You can shoot it on an iPhone. You just take a pie in the face, and you nominate 3 people for suicide and depression awareness. And you nominate 3 people. And if I may give you a little advice, I'm trying to get the industry involved. So feel free to throw a nomination out to people like Tracy Savage.
Okay, certainly.
Yeah, because depression is not taken seriously enough.
No, I agree. Yeah, it's a huge problem, and I know people personally have suffered from it, and absolutely. Once you're under that it's almost like a weighted blanket holding you down.
Well, Scott,
it's a true condition. It's not just something that it's not made up. It's not all in your head kind of a thing. It's funny. And it's funny, you mentioned Robin Williams. When I was living in L.A., I met someone who was about his age. I can't even remember this person's name. And they had a day job, but for a while they wanted to be a stand-up comedian. And way back in the 70s, they were going to open for Robin Williams. I'll never forget when this guy told me this, and I couldn't even tell you his name. But he told me, he said, I was going to open up. I was doing stand-up. I was going to go on tour with Robin Williams, but at the last minute it got canceled. I said, oh, no, man, why did it get canceled? He says, because of his depression.
Oh.
And I thought, really? And this was back in the mid. This is before Mork and Mindy. This was back in the mid '70s maybe. So it's something that he definitely lived with his whole life.
Yeah. Well, Scotty McCoy, who wrote the Ultimate Friday the 13th trivia book, and I would recommend you reach out to him. He did it, and everybody he nominated. He actually went from 3 to nominating 5. He nominated. Oh, wow. He nominated 5 Friday the 13th alumni.
That's great. Yeah, no. And for sure.
And Lar Park Lincoln, I think, is down for it for sure. I know we both heard from her. Do you think
I just watched her yesterday. It's so funny. I don't know when this will air, but in House 2, I got the House box set on Blu-ray, and I completely kind of forgotten. I'm kind of straight. Lar Park Lincoln's in House 2, and she's on the making of documentary and all. So it was great to see her again. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of hers.
I wish that they didn't let her. I would never have let her walk out of that house, especially open up the cupboard after and showing your friend the pterodactyl. He already believes you. I hate that scene. Like, I've opened up the cupboard while she's in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I told her that. I said, you're too beautiful. I'd never let you walk out.
That's right.
But yeah, I'll throw the Doubtfire Challenge out there. Do you think Tracy would do it?
You never know. Yeah, you can talk, You never know. Stranger things have happened. So.
Okay. No, I'm trying to put that out there, so I thought I would throw that out there too. So, yeah, I'll send you those couple links and check it. Like I said, I've got my stuff on YouTube under the name Python's Paradise and Greg Gilbert. So I've got some of my Friday the 13th interviews on there if you wish to check them out. So
absolutely, I certainly will.
Yeah. And when Wood Floors is completed, like I said, feel free to reach out to me. I'll have you back on here again in a heartbeat.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. We'll do that, and maybe Alexandra Paul will be willing to do it as well, and we'll definitely start doing that.
Yeah. This has been fantastic. I'm glad I had you on here today. We've talked almost 2 hours, but I know. Yeah,
I'm glad you reached out to me. I know it has been a while. Well, it's been great, and I'll look forward to hearing this or whatever when it airs, and I hope to talk to you again.
Well, like I said, be very, very patient because this might be towards the end of the year or whatnot when this comes out. I've got so many interviews in front of you, but just remember it is going to air.
Okay, certainly.
Yep,
Forward
and
to it.
we'll get the Bone Garden out there and hopefully get more
Okay,
people
yeah, and I'll
interested
send
in
you
it.
an autographed copy in the meantime.
We'll do that. Absolutely. Now, before you go, would you do a plug for my show?
Sure.
Yeah, just state your name. Even say you're the director of the Bone Garden, and say you're listening to Python's Paradise. That's the name of my show. Say you're listening to Python's Paradise with Greg Gilbert out of New Brunswick, Canada.
Hold on, let me write that down. Greg Gilbert out of New Brunswick, Canada.
Yep, and the show's called Python's Paradise. Yeah.
Hold on one second.
Yeah. Yeah, this has been a lot of fun today promoting this film. Yeah.
Python's Paradise.
Yeah.
All right.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, shoot.
Okay, hey everyone, this is Mike Gutridge, director of the Bone Garden with Tracy Savage, and you're listening to Python's Paradise with Greg Gilbert out of New Brunswick, Canada.
Oh, that was perfect. Mike, thank you so much for coming on here and taking the time to promote your film. And yeah.
Anytime. Thanks for having me. It's been a real pleasure. It's been an honor, and we'll talk again, I promise.
Oh, yeah, we'll talk again, and reach out to Tracy Savage for me, and I will keep in contact with you online and order a copy of your movie.
Absolutely. Thanks. Thanks again.
All right. God bless you, and you have yourself a fantastic day.
You too. Take care.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.